Welcome to Horror After Midnight. I am your co-host, the SaWGuy, joined today by my brother from another mother, KC. What's going on today, buddy?
Not too much, man. Here to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. How about you?
Oh yeah, man. I really enjoyed this one. It does have a lot of weird stuff in this one, but another very brutal movie.
Oh yeah, and we have to do this one since we're doing the whole Halloween timeline. You guys knew we were going to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I mean, we told you in the last episode, but I mean, we have to do this one because me and Casey, we were talking off camera and we were saying, man, I don't get why people have the hate on this one. And I think we both came to agreement was because of the fact that it's like the redhead stepchild almost, because Rob Zombie just went through this whole different timeline and just ended it, which I thought was really cool, but a lot of people have different opinions on that. Um, Before we get started, of course, we got to break down the numbers. KC, you want me to read off the numbers for you, partner?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, no secret. Do you know who directed and this story was written by?
Rob Zombie.
Yes. So, believe it or not, like this whole like story of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, he wrote this whole story and the screenplay. So, a lot of people give him crap about it because he wrote the story for it. But breaking it down, of course, you have Malcolm McDowell comes back as Dr. Sam Loomis. Tyler Mane returns as Michael Myers. Sherry Moon Zombie, of course, Rob Zombie's got to put his wife in everything. Brad Dourif, who plays a bigger role in this, Scout Taylor Compton, Daniel Harris, and of course some other cameos that you might see. There's a guy on there from what's that show? Sons of Anarchy. You see some other main actors that he used later on, like Richard Brock, who was later on in 31. So Rob Zombie has like a known record. Like if he hasn't used you before and he used you as a cameo role in one movie, his next movie you're gonna be in a starring role. So it's pretty cool how he does that. As far as like the budget goes, and release date. Now check this out. This is interesting. The budget again was 15 freaking $1 million, and that's not bad. The box office on it, of course, it made half of what the first one did. The first one did 80 million. This one did 40 million, about 39.5. Runtime is about the same. I think it's like 5 minutes shorter, so almost 2 hours, about an hour, like 40 and change, with everything. Interestingly enough, do you know when the release date was this?
I know it was in 2009, but other than
Hmm.
that, I don't.
Exactly 2 years after the first Halloween, which I thought was crazy. So the first one was August 31st of 2007. This one's August 28th of 2009. So I thought that was kind of cool coincidence. What do you think?
Yeah, that is really cool how they like did it pretty much exactly 2 years later.
Hmm. I was really surprised, dude, because um, I honestly really, really was shocked that he came back and did a part two. So most of you guys don't know, and Casey, I don't know if you know this, but you know how part two was talked about, how they decided to bring that one back, right?
I'm guessing they wanted to make more money. I mean, it's Michael. People are gonna go see it.
True, you can't kill the boogeyman, which, you know, everybody knew that they were going to do a sequel. I mean, really, did you think Michael Myers would be shot in the head and be dead? I mean, come on. Come on. Um, After this one was released, the Weinstein brothers, this is their production company before all this stuff happened. They came to an agreement that they were going to make a part two based off of Rob Zombie's Halloween. And they were getting ready to shoot until Rob Zombie gave him a call one day and said, "Hey, were you guys going to do a sequel to my movie?" They pretty much said, "Yeah, what are you going to do about it?" And Rob Zombie said, "I'll come back and do it." So Rob Zombie came back and did this film. And it's kind of funny how that whole happened because they were just going to do it without him and just continue on, which I don't know how that would work if they actually did that without him. But anyways, they brought him back on for this one. They continue off of the 2007 original version that he did. And I thought it was kind of crazy because he wanted to do this one in 3D, apparently. And looking at some of the notes that I have, he wanted to do something. I guess you could say with a kooky twist, almost dark, melodic kind of thing. And I'm kind of glad that he didn't go that route because I mean, I can't see Halloween be like House of a Thousand Corpse. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that would have worked for this. There was still some weird stuff in this movie, but I couldn't see it being like House of a Thousand Corpses.
Right? It's just I get some of the horror references that he was putting in there, and it's just but to start off with this one, a lot of people don't like it, and we're gonna say this right off the bat because it was Rob Zombie's vision. Now, this film starts off and it gets you hyped up because it takes place like the last minute of what happened. How Scout Taylor Compton, she shoots him in the head, she screams, ah, right? Then they kind of go and they follow the hospital scenes, which, if you guys are hardcore, Halloween fans like how we were, they're following part two, right? I loved how they did part two as far as like the beginning. It didn't follow the whole movie on it. They showed that she's in a hospital and everything like that. They're trying to figure out what happened to the parents because they don't know that the parents died in the original, right? Um, I thought it was kind of cool because they had a cameo from two different actors. Caroline Williams, who was Stretch off of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and she was also off Leprechaun 3. You remember her, the one with the big butt, big lips?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the nurses or the doctors in this. And then you had the other lady, Octavia Spencer, I think is the actress's name. She like she wasn't really big at this time, but she got big because of Michael Myers in this film, and she ended up being Ma in the movie Ma and all that. But she played the nurse, and they Rob Zombie wrote this story so perfect. Like everything is like Carrie, everything's perfect, and then little by little things start happening. The power goes out, and then Scout Taylor Compton or Lori in this movie. Um, Scout was really great at this because they show that her foot was jacked up, like in part two, like the original part two, and she's walking around carrying the thing with the IV bag, and she's walking all around trying to call the nurse, like, "What's going on, nurse, nurse?" And as she's going around, I thought this was one of the best scenes. Like the start off the film was you see the nurse coming around, and then she's like looking like she's gonna hold herself and throw it up, and she starts spitting out blood. And she starts screaming this wail, and out of the blue, you see Michael Myers. And the way they made him look was so badass. His clothes are all tore up. You see the mask had like the bullet hole, like it grazed him on the side of the head, and he had blood all over the mask. The mask was amazing. And the fact that this kill scene happened right in front of her, where she's getting stabbed multiple times, and Rob Zombie's vision of it, where he manipulated her to go up and down like she was being stabbed and screaming and the wailing. A lot of people didn't like that scene because when Michael Myers was, finishing the kill scene, he was grunting because this is the first time you ever hear him talk as Michael Myers. And the grunting scene, I know you probably got to have your own opinion on this one, but I loved how he was grunting because it kind of showed like, hey, I'm pissed off, like, and you fucked around too long, that kind of thing. Because you're just like, and it just, oh, what do you think of that kill scene? Like, just to start off of that.
It was it was an awesome start. I don't know how many times he stabbed her. I had to be like 15, 20 times, something like that. Just
Oh,
very
yeah.
brutal, very bloody. I love that how it starts off with a bang.
Oh, dude, it just you didn't even get a chance to go get your popcorn in the theaters. I mean, if you got your popcorn, you came back in, you missed half of the movie right there. But seeing that scene, he just looked so brutal and pissed off, and his hair was wild, and then the whole like outfit was torn up. I love the whole cat and mouse chase scene. She's running through the hospital. She sees Caroline Williams where she's like tied down to a door and her eyes have been plucked out. She runs around like the whole hospital, and then she finally gets outside and it's pouring rain. She sees that guy. He's God, I can't remember his name, the actor's name, but he was in the first Hatchet. He was the one who gets his face split open, and
Okay.
he's over there telling her, "No, no, no, you're okay. Nothing's gonna happen. My name is Buddy. Don't worry, Buddy. I got you. Come in here." So he brings her into like the little outpost because I guess he's like a security guard. And of course, I got to say with Rob Zombie, he always puts in great soundtracks because it's playing the Moody Blues, White Nights in Satin, which is kind of
Yeah.
like a crazy weird song to play, and he goes outside to go park his car. She thinks something's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden he like, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. Michael Myers has an axe and he's like tearing this guy apart. She closes the door, locks it up, thinks she's safe. And I thought this was an amazing scene where it shows Michael is just grunting and axing the hell out of this little, like, I guess you could say this little station where it's like a guard station. And then all of a sudden he
Yeah,
breaks through and grabs her. And then she wakes up and then you find out it's a dream. It was like, what the hell? And I mean, that opening alone.
yeah, great opening in that little shack thing she's in. It's like the walls are so thin. He's like hacks right through it with the axe.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at it, like Tyler Maine's a big dude, and I think he got more jacked for this role for part two because he looked bigger in this one than he did in the first one, right?
Yeah, he did look huge.
It was just insane, dude. I mean, what'd you think about like Rob Zombie, how he started this, and then how it kind of takes place? Because I think it's like 2 years. Yeah, it's 2 years because he released it 2 years after. He released it. It's 2 years after Michael Myers. The whole thing happened. You want to break down like what's been going on with them after 2 years?
Well, I think in the beginning of the movie, it's like right after the original is how it starts, and he goes to the hospital. But I think he doesn't make it to the hospital because the two ambulance drivers, they're like joking around about the dead girl in the back or whatever. And he's like, "What's the difference between jam and jelly?" And he's, "Oh, you can't jelly or talk about dead girl's ass." And then the other guys
I
like start
forgot about that one.
whatever, and they hit this huge cow, and Michael goes flying or whatever. Oh no, actually, he doesn't fly. Sorry, that's another one. Getting these a little confused. But they hit the cow or whatever. Michael gets out.
Cow, cow.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and Michael gets out and like cuts one of the dude's heads like completely off, which was awesome. You haven't seen him do anything like that
Oh.
really. Um, and then yeah, it's like 2 years later. Michael's basically living almost like a homeless dude somewhere. I don't really know where he's living. You see him kind of like walking through fields and stuff. Uh, and you got Lori now. She's like works with these other chicks at like some kind of store or something like that. And she's like a little messed up now from everything that's happened before. She's like seeing like a psychiatrist or something like that. Um, Kind of cool the way they did that because I mean I can only imagine like what your like mental state would be after going through something like that. So that was pretty
Right?
cool.
Yeah, and a lot of people give this film shit, but it's like, no, Rob Zombie like played it down to the real horror roots. So like the Michael Myers scene that you were talking about where they crashed, one of the actors was Richard Brock, who ends up being Doomhead later on in his film 31. And I love the scene where he's like trying to move around. He's like, fuck, fuck, and he's saying like fuck so many times. And then that's when Michael cut his head off. Just he wakes up, no issues or whatever, right? He
Yeah,
stops and then he drops the head because he sees Rob Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon. And this scene was really weird. She's like walking around in a pale white horse. And he like sees it in his head and then he drops it like he's gonna go walk with his mom. And then that's when he starts living like the hobo life. And
yeah,
it's that I was like, okay, I can get behind that. A little weird, but I get behind that. Um, I like
yeah.
what
It's
you
not like
said about. Oh, go
nothing.
ahead.
He can't. He, he's not working a normal job, fucking 9 to 5 or nothing like that. So I mean,
he's not he's not working at the truck stop like with Joe Grizzly.
no,
Oh shit. Um, I loved how you brought up the fact that this was based on real horror because when you survive something like that, you're not going to come out normal like how she was. She was a preppy, all happy, all American schoolgirl. This happened, and her life is in shambles. Her adopted parents are dead. Um, she finds out later on, like the secret, but the main thing is that her family and them they all moved out of Haddonfield. They moved out to the outskirts, and she ended up living with Annie because Annie survived in the first one, and in the original she gets killed. And Annie and her sheriff, or her sheriff, her dad is the sheriff, which is Brad Dourif. They bought a farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, and Lori's living with her. And they were best of friends. But when you see this after what they've gone through, they're at each other's throats all the time, which I thought was crazy. Because you would think they going through this they make them closer, but no, they're at each other's throats. And Lori made the comment. She's like, "Well, I can't forget about it because look at the scars on your face."
Yeah.
Ooh, that was just that was a burn. And then to see Sheriff Brackett kind of get in the middle, try to be nice and try to tell Lori, like, look, go get help. And Lori now, she's a little bit older, she's driving. The only thing I have the issue with is Rob Zombie's timeline. He tries to make it like, oh, this is the 90s, they have cell phones. I mean, that's Rob Zombie's logic, but that's a whole other story. But they kind of get into the fact that she's becoming this goth girl, which kind of is annoying. But Rob Zombie did really good because he wants you to kind of hate Laurie Strode in a way because of what she's acting and out and everything. And she
Yeah.
wanted like more medication. She became almost a druggie in a sense. And it was really dark, dude. Like out of every horror film that I've seen, have you ever seen a horror film that shows like the ugly side of surviving that kind of thing?
No, not that I can think of. Not normally. No, they just basically the next movie, if they're still in it, they're just the same type person they were in the last one. It didn't really affect them or change them really in most of the movies I've seen.
Right? Like even for me, and I'm a big Saw nerd because I mean, my name's Saw Guy, but if you look at it like even after Saw, they didn't go into the depths and details of like how these people survived. Like they did a little bit, but not to the point of this level where it was dark. Like it almost made you feel uneasy. Like watching the film, I was screaming like, "Oh, why is she being such an ass?" I mean, you would think, but that's the thing I love about this is it was a psychological horror, a real one. Like if someone survived that, what they would go through. Um, I did like some of the story where it did kind of show there was like a couple things going on. It was like three different things happening. So you had Laurie Strode's meltdown and hanging out with friends. She's hanging out with the wrong crowd. I think they were working at a record store, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, record store, bookstore, something along those lines.
Yeah, and they were talking about like getting ready for a Halloween party, and then you find out what's happening with Dr. Loomis, which was the biggest twist in this film, is that he survived. How crazy is that?
He survived and he wrote a book about him.
Yeah, and he became a diva, which I thought was kind of like the comedy joke of this film was he survived it, became a diva, and then he's complaining to like his helper, like, no, 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 I didn't want that tea, I want this tea, and they interviewed him and they made him look stupid about it because they're like, oh, if you knew about Michael Myers, then why'd you release him? I didn't release him. Sanitarium did.
Yeah,
And I liked how they kind of show because in the original he was like the white knight in shiny armor. And this one, he used that as his own motive to like become rich and to talk shit. And that was a different take. A lot of people didn't like that. I mean, how do you feel about that with Loomis being kind of like the bad guy in this?
yeah, he definitely was. He was looked at like he was basically trying to make money off of the victims of Michael, which isn't cool. Um, and even in one part of the movie, he's doing like a book signing, and like one of the
That's
parents
right.
pulls a gun on him and almost kills him.
That's right. That was Linda's dad. That's right. I completely forgot about that when you were bringing it up. Not to be too graphic, guys, but we were talking about the last episode, seeing some bush, and I just when I think of Linda, I said, "Ah, bush." Okay, never mind. Whew, right through my head. Uh,
Yeah, that what like late night TV show with like who was a Weird Al or something like that. They just
yeah.
been with him the whole time.
That's it was kind of that was funny because that was really Weird Al. Weird Al was like cast as himself in this film. Um, I loved how there was like three different things kind of going on in the whole patriarch of the story. I think one of my favorite parts while this was going on is what was going on with Michael and how eventually he was living off the land, off random shit, and he grew out his hair, he grew out his beard, and he didn't wear the mask for a while and it got torn up like a big old chunk of the eye is missing because he got shot in the face.
Yeah.
But I love the part where he ends up going to the I can't remember. No. Actually, take that back. He was on the farmland, and these farmers, they're like, "Hey, we noticed this guy's living off our land. Let's go kick his ass, see what's going on." So you see the father and his daughter and his son-in-law, and they were there with their dog. They came with this big ass truck, and they keep telling him like, "Hey, you need to leave off the land." And of course, Michael didn't talk, so they went over there and they put a beat down on him. Once they beat him up, they're like, okay, he's done. Michael gets up, and I love this scene because he gets up and he's wearing the jumpsuit, but he has a big ass jacket over him. And in that jacket, he pulls out the mask and then he puts it on slowly, like in the shadows with like the front car, like with the light staring. He puts it
Yeah.
on and then he just goes ape shit and just starts stabbing all of them. And
Oh,
I thought it
kills
was
them all.
crazy. Huh?
I would say yeah, he kills them all, and then he even went
Yeah.
after.
Dude, it's I felt so bad because the daughter was the only sane one who was like, "Don't do that, don't do that." And she goes up to him and says, "I'm sorry, mister." And same thing like the first film. I thought that was kind of a cool little wink is that Danny Trejo in the first film was nice and said he was sorry. This girl tried to do the same thing because Michael killed her dad, threw him like in the middle of the truck. The boyfriend got stabbed to death. He pulled her out and then stabbed her while she was screaming, "No!"
Yeah.
And this one was fucked up. They had the dog in the cage in the back, and he got the knife and was swinging around on the cage, ding 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 ding, and the dog was like, "Arr." That's I, I I try not to think about it. I'm like, come on, not the animals, man, not the animals. Apparently, it's implied that he got the dog and he ate the dog.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. He must have been hungry.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let you have this scene because I know we talked about it, and you know what scene I'm talking about. Because after that happened, then he goes back to where his mom works. I'll let you take this one.
Okay, yeah, it goes back to where his mom used to work. I believe it was called like the Red Rabbit or something like that. It's a strip club. Um,
Yeah,
and there's like this really like sleazy looking dude with like a strange looking mustache or whatever inside talking to the owner and one of the strippers, and they tell him to take out the trash or whatever because he's like I guess like a nobody at the club. Or he goes out back or whatever to take the trash out, and he sees Michael. And he's like, "Hey, we don't like the bums hanging out back here. You need to take off or whatever." Michael kind of stands there and just stares at him. And after a couple minutes about him talking shit back and forth, like he's going to beat his ass or whatever, Michael just totally ruins his day and kills him. Ends up
in a
going
brutal
inside.
way.
Oh yeah, I can't remember exactly how he killed that guy, but
Oh, he
just
stomped his face, dude.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. He actually stomped on his face, but he crushes his whole skull and face in. That's
Yeah,
right. That was really brutal. And then he goes inside of the strip club, and the owner's like having sex with one of the strippers, and ends up killing both of them too. So there's nobody left alive in the strip club at all. I'm guessing he held a grudge against that guy because his mom's like poster is like still up on the wall or whatever inside the strip club.
yeah. That's that scene was brutal, dude. And I love the fact that he was grunting when he was smashing that guy's face in, and then he goes and the guy tried to pull a gun on him, the owner of the strip club, and he breaks his arm. And he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
my arm, oh!" And the way he killed the stripper was he kept throwing her on all the mirrors. I was like, "Whoa!" Like
bunch
that's
of
a
time.
weird, yeah. And that was a weird kind of kill. Like I give Rob Zombie credit; he actually really put a lot of thought into this. And you know, it's like you said, he probably did have like a grudge against it, but they never implied that Michael had any smarts. You know what I'm saying? They made it seem like he was just there. And I wish they
Yeah,
would have kind of dived into that a little bit.
yeah, it might have been a random. He just happened to end up being there, but it is kind of strange. His mom worked there, so I mean, you never know if he was just like kind of taking revenge out on the owner there, or just happened to be just happened to be there by some kind of mistake or whatever. But the way they did it, it made it look like it was more of like a revenge thing.
Yeah. It's honestly, I can get behind it because I thought that was kind of cool with some of the kill scenes. And then The story gets kind of a little bit darker because now Loomis releases his book, and Annie's father, Sheriff Brackett, was like, "Oh shit!" Like, because he was reading the book, and Loomis lets out the secret that the reason why he was going after Laurie Strode is because her name is actually Angel,
Yeah,
and she's
yeah,
related to Michael Myers. And that's what he's telling Annie, like, "Hey, is she there? No, I don't know why. Don't let her read that fucking book." And before she can find out, she buys the book because she hears from somebody saying that she was, you know, the baby. She reads the book and has a mental breakdown, goes home, grabs her shit, saying she's running away. And then Annie doesn't know, and Annie sees her dad because he comes back. Where's Lori? She said, she's leaving, and she said, tell Angel that she said fuck you or something. And then, that's when Sheriff Brackett's like, oh god damn it. So they're going on a hunt to go look for Lori. Lori's going on a party like spree, and they're all dressed as what was it? What's that Halloween movie? The Sweet Transvestite. Rocky Horror. They're all dressed up as like Rocky Horror, different characters.
I was like, I'm a chick dressing up as a dude that wants to be a chick.
Yeah, that's the way she put it in the movie. And
Yeah,
it was kind of like, okay, it gave me Halloween 5 vibes with Tina and all of them. How they went to the party and all that, and they meet up with different people. And, before the party, she's telling everybody, like, I'm freaking Michael Myers' sister, and they didn't tell me. And they're like, fuck it, man. Just let's smoke some weed and go out and party. So they go and party. And she gets all fucked up. And I don't know if it's because she got roofied or something. Her friend goes and meets up with his dude in the van. And then they're like getting ready to screw around. And then all of a sudden, Michael Myers, like, he sees the kid taking a piss on the side of the tree and smashes his head in. He goes in the
yeah,
van and he destroys this chick because she was tiny, and everyone thinks that they're screwing around because the van's rocking. And yeah,
yeah. It's
dude,
rock.
it was rocking. But dude, like that was fucking brutal because she was a tiny little girl, and if you see the size difference between Tyler Mane and that actor, I think her name was Harley in the movie, her friend. He basically tosses her around and just breaks her in half, dude. And then of course he sees the other friend and kills her. And then it ends up being this cat and mouse chase game where he's chasing after I was gonna say Angel, but she, she's still known as Lori. He chased her around and follows her to the field, and then they had this big standoff because finally Loomis comes in, and Loomis and Brackett, like, they are going heads to head to each other because he was talking shit on Brackett in the book, and it builds up
Well,
to this
that
finale.
and
The
was
what?
also sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but it was
Oh
also
no,
because his daughter just got murdered, and he just found his daughter dead, and now Michael has Lori in like a shack or whatever, like this standoff or whatever. So he's like really
that's
pissed off that his daughter just died.
that's right. I forgot about that. So in the scene where Sheriff Brackett's trying to find her, he's like telling his other deputies, like, "Stay there, watch my daughter," and she's telling him, "No, go fuck yourself." um, Michael finally shows up, kill those deputies, and Annie, she goes to use the bathroom and sees that Michael's there, and he like stabs the shit out of her. They don't show it, but then you know Lori, she goes back, she sees that Annie's dying, and then all of a sudden she sees through the door that Michael's was there, and then that's where the chase ended. Well, not
Yeah,
ended, but it started, and it was crazy. Like I completely forgot about that scene because that scene was just like, oh my god, you were my best friend. I'm sorry that we fought through all those times. And they're just saying all that shit to each other, and it's like, well, I like the fact that it played on that psychological because you don't know what you got until it's gone, and that's
yeah,
essentially what they played on. And then they run to the shack, and oh, I'm gonna let you explain the ending, dude, because it's a lot.
yeah. The ending there. Now Lori has began to basically lose her mind. Same way as the same way how Michael has, how he's been seeing his mom. Now she's starting to see Michael as like a kid and her mom there, and somehow is being like held down by somebody that's not even there. It's like almost like mind handcuffs are holding her back or whatever while Michael's there. Dr. Loomis shows up, um, and is like trying to offer help. and the sheriff is like telling him to get out of here, like I want to shoot you and stuff like that. So he acts like he's gonna walk off, but then he's like turns around and runs in there, and he's like, I owe you this. I got to help you or whatever, and I'm gonna draw Michael out. Goes in there, sees Lori there, telling her that there's nobody holding you. It's all in your head. And tries to like to get her to like to get up and get out. And somehow he draws Michael outside. And once he gets Michael outside, you hear Michael speak for the very first time, where he like yells out "die." And he goes to stab Loomis. And
Yeah.
then I believe Lori like picks up a knife. Somehow she gets a knife and is standing over top of I can't remember if it's Michael or Dr. Loomis. They go to shoot her. And then like the sheriff like yells like hold fire or something like that. And then it was after that, um, she's not completely lost her mind. She's like put into like an insane asylum with all like white walls and everything, and makes you believe that might possibly be like a third movie where she might become the killer, almost how they did with Jamie and what was it, part
Part
five,
4.
part four? Yeah, the end of part
Yeah.
four, almost the same type thing. So kind of cool ending. She was really hot for a psycho chick. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the crazier the better. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the ending at all. I honestly liked the ending because there's two different versions to the ending. Um,
uh,
one
I've
there's
only seen that.
Oh no, you're good because it's the same ending except they have like extra added into it. So the only difference between the added ending and this one is in this one, Michael he goes crazy and that's when he screams dies and then he stabs the hell out of Loomis. And then the way Michael dies, because Loomis has already got up from the knife, they all just unleash like every single shot at him. And Michael dies because of like 1,000 gunshots, which a lot of people were pissed because they're like, he's the boogeyman. He gets shot, he gets right back up. But if you watched Rob Zombie's version, he's never been shot, like, or hit. He got grazed in the face with the mask, but he didn't die because he
Yeah,
was grazed. But I think that was kind of a cool way to end it. It was kind of weird how she came out and then just picked up the mask and then the knife when they had the guns at her, and then they don't show anything, which, okay, I can get behind it. And then that ending. What I like about it though, on the unrated version, or not the unrated, but the alternate ending, was they shoot her too. So depending on which version you see, because Rob Zombie has a regular version and an unedited version or unrated, whatever, the unrated with the deleted scene, it shows that she gets shot. So she
yeah,
puts on the mask and the knife, and then she's walking towards Sheriff Brackett, and then they all shoot her, but they shoot her, I think, like twice, and she goes down and she survives. And it's still the same ending, but she gets shot, and then they kind of play off that she's going to take over, which I love the story to this, dude. I mean, the ending was like, I could see it. I mean, because evil finds a way, essentially, and evil has no boundaries. That's what I liked about it. That's what Rob Zombie was saying. Um,
yeah. Possibly like what Michael has. Maybe it could be like hereditary or something like that.
yeah, and see, and I like how it was psychological. He kept it real, but the diehard Michael Myers fans, what are they gonna say? You can't kill the boogeyman, and they were pissed because he killed the boogeyman.
Yeah,
And
he's been killed many times.
so you think, right? But
What
I
comes
mean,
back?
yeah. And every movie that you've seen, where's the one that he looks like he's gone, right? Part 4, I think you could say, because he falls down the ditch and then Jamie goes crazy. But then they explain it in part 5. And then the ending of part 5, he gets broken out. Part 6, I guess you could say he was dead, but then he wakes back up. And then you hear Loomis scream, ugh. Um, Part 2, he gets burned. I mean, so
Explosion
that's
and the well,
yeah, because that's the only time you really see him die. But the fact that Rob Zombie killed him off and only did 2, like everyone was just shocked. Like, what? And originally, this was supposed to be in 3D because that was the time when 3D was coming around. They said, okay, we'll do it as a third one, right? And this is when they were going to try to do Halloween 3D. And that was supposed to be released in 2013, 2012, around that time frame. It got
Oh,
canceled um, for obvious reasons because the Weinstein thing and all that stuff. There was rumors about that. But also, too, they had another script where they were going to do, and this is so crazy to talk about. They were going to do Rob Zombie's Michael Myers in Halloween versus Pinhead, if you believe that.
that'd have been a little strange, but maybe interesting to see.
Right? Um,
It was
the Ro-
strange. The whole thing with
right?
the ghost, and the white horse, and it was psychological, but like stuff you've never seen in any other Halloween film.
Oh, I know, but I mean, it was all there to do it. I mean, I could see that going from this that ending in Halloween 2 to jump into to Hellraiser because Todd Farmer um he wrote the script for it, and you can actually see the script right now if you type in Halloween versus Hellraiser. It'll pop over how or Michael Myers versus Pinhead. They had some like art for it too. And the way it was going to work is that somebody would find the layman configuration box, they open it, it heals up Michael, and Michael comes back from hell or something, and then Pinhead goes after him, which is kind of
Uh,
a cool story because now you play off the fact that Michael's a demon almost. But
yeah,
of course, that kind of fell through, and a lot of people, I, I gotta say, man, a lot of people had a bad taste of this movie in their mouth just because it wasn't your stereotypical Michael Myers film. That's why it did half of the budget that it made on the predecessor. You know, because the first one made 80 million, this one made 40. Um,
yeah.
it still holds up as one of the most controversial horror films, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just everybody's divided on this one. When you ask anybody what is the worst Halloween film, everyone's gonna say it's this one. And I'm like, motherfucker, have you seen Halloween Ends? We don't even need to get into that one yet because we, if you guys see us on the YouTube channel, um, I was on there on Mask. It was KC and Slink. We all just obliterated that movie right after we saw. Like, are you serious? That wasn't a Michael Myers movie. Um, I mean, and we'll talk about that one later on. It's a different episode, but um, you got to say this one's better than Ends, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're in agreement on that. Two other things before we wrap this up. We got to talk about the mask. Now, with this mask, I'd say it's one of my favorites. This one's definitely for sure in my top three. I got to say, it's got to be probably number two, number three, because it's Resurrection and Rob Zombie styles for me. And it's a hard toss up because there's four different styles that Michael Myers had between the Rob Zombie films. He had the clean one and the original. He had the clean one with the wear and tear in the original, so that's two. He had this one where it had the blood on the side because of the small bullet hole, and then a year after that, he had the whole like half face ripped out. I would say the wear and tear on this one was friggin' phenomenal because you never see his eyes, and when they show his eyes and he just had that blank stare, and the way it fit Tyler Maine's face with that mangy wild man look with the beard. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about that, dude?
The wear and tear was great. It looked basically just like the one from the last movie. Besides, it was tore up some. Uh, it was done really well. I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah, dude. They put a lot of thought in this one. I mean, everyone gives Rob Zombie shit for this and says, "Oh, he just did this as a cash cow." No, he didn't do it as a cash cow, man. I mean, if he did, why did the mask look that good? Right? Why was the story so different? Can't answer it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that he didn't want someone else to continue on his story. He wanted to tell it the way he wanted to tell it. He did get a lot of hate for it. I mean, even me, like I said, there's a lot of weird stuff in this movie, but overall, as a Halloween film, it was awesome.
Oh yeah. I mean, for what it was, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I had to give his. I mean, of course, we're gonna rate this film. I gave the first remake a 10. This one, I have to honestly say I can't give it a 10, but I give it close to it. I give it a 9. And it lost the point with me because of the timeline thing with Rob Zombie and how it's like supposed to be the 90s and this and this and that. But outside of that, the story was great. I mean, of course, Rob Zombie, he pulled out another great soundtrack with this. I really like the soundtracks that he's done for the first two Halloweens. But this was kind of a predecessor of he wanted to kind of experiment his weird ways because the next film he did after this was Lords of Salem, which was kind of a weird one. I mean, maybe we might talk about it on this show, but what do you think? What's your rating, Casey?
For this one, like I was saying, like the kills were brutal. It had a good story. It was good seeing like how having like things like this happen to you would make you like mentally. It was nice seeing all that. Had some weird stuff with like having his mom as like a ghost and stuff like that. So this one I liked it a lot, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Ooh, why a 7?
Just the weird ghost stuff was a little too much.
I thought you were gonna say it's the grunting when he was pissed off. Rah, rah.
Yeah, I mean it was cool hearing him like say a one word die because you never hear him speak ever. That was different. He usually doesn't speak, but that was cool. But yeah, it was a little too much. Like you didn't have to have the whole ghost thing.
Yeah, I agree. The ghost thing, it didn't do it for me unless they were gonna try and build up to a sequel. But I think that was Rob Zombie's way of like using it as an out because they weren't gonna carry on with the whole mental awareness, that kind of thing. They didn't want to go through the mental crazy health thing because at the time when this film came out, there wasn't like that's when mental health awareness was like started to come out. They weren't going to do so much psychological stuff, and you had to live that time to kind of understand it. And it was, I think this is one of the last films that kind of touched that. I mean, because you got to look at it this way: Michael Myers after this film or any of the films, he's never grunted. This one, he really was. I loved how he expressed his anger and he was pissed. This one stands out because it was Rob Zombie's vision. He started it and he finished it and closed the chapter of that book. A lot of people were pissed because they wanted to carry on sequels, but when you kill him, I mean, how can you carry on the sequel? Well, a lot of people didn't want to see Laurie Strode become the evil now that Dr. Loomis is gone and all that. But I mean, for what it was, it's a great story. Way better than Ends. I mean, we're both in agreement for that one, I hope.
For sure.
Yeah. But I will say this though. If you haven't seen Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or you've seen it and you're like, it's a piece of shit film, please go check it out. Give it another chance. Watch for the little details. The fact that they have all the cameo roles and everything. It's really a good film. I mean, take your normal mindset of Michael Myers out and then just kind of imagine what would Michael Myers do if he's out of that sandbox, right? He's out of Haddonfield. He's living on his own. He's kind of like this homeless bum. Like, imagine that. That's what they tried to do with Jason for the remake of Jason, but of course that never got taken off. But I mean, it's different. It's badass.
Yeah.
Um, I just go check it out. That's all I got to say. I mean, there's AMC Movie Fest going on, horror movies. I mean, it's a spooky season now. Y'all got to enjoy that. But for future episodes, what we're going to be discussing now, since we're going down to all the Halloween timelines, we're going to get into
Yeah.
the next timeline. And we're going to be talking about Halloween 2018. Um, most
Good
people
movie.
know this as Halloween 40, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Halloween 40, Halloween 2018. Some people just call it Halloween in general. We'll discuss that timeline and we'll give you our thoughts on it. But in the meantime, check this one out. And Casey and me, fuck it, man. Let's go watch Halloween 40 right now.
Sounds good. Until next time.